Hello, good evening, Natalia. How are you? How do you feel today?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you.
Great, that's great to know. Let's begin, please, with today's class. We have some things right to resume. We didn't have classes last Friday, as I told you there was going to be a possibility, but we're just going to go back to what we were doing. So I don't know if you have something that we can check before starting with the activities that we have for today. Natalia, we're still working in our document, right? You worked on the first body paragraph. We were supposed to work on another one, but I don't know how you're doing with that, or if you have any questions or anything to show me so I can correct that before starting. Let me know, please.
No, I forgot the paragraph. I will send you. I will make on that for the next class, but I working the examples with wish, with simple past and simple present in the document.
Great. It's the new one, right? The new document?
Yes.
All right. Very good. So I'm going there. Let's check that first, and then we go to the next lesson then, all right? And when you have everything ready related to the new paragraph, you're going to let me know. This is the most important thing, okay? So far, this is what we have to do. So let's read these examples that you have. Let's start with this present, right? This is present wish, but we use simple past. All right. Oh, no, I mean, I believe it's a simple past, right? So these are past wishes then, right? Because they are in the past part, that the past perfect. So they are past wishes, right? This is the past perfect. And this is, yeah, these are present wishes in the simple past. Correct. So let's begin with the past wishes, please.
I wish I had studied more in my college. I wish I hadn't forgotten my doctor's appointment. My dog wishes it hadn't beaten my shoes. My friend wishes he hadn't told me lies. And I put two answer and questions because I'm not sure if it's possible to use wasn't. In the example, when at first I put weren't in the second example, but when I changed with was, it put me that correct answer when I was practicing. So,
okay. Yes, I don't know why they are doing that. That's on Pearson, right?
No, it's in person. Is the link at the end of the presentation of wish
Okay.
exercise that you put for practice.
All right, good. Then I didn't check that one. I thought that they were working also with these rules. Look, in speaking, there's no problem if you say that. Also in writing is correct. But if you work in tests and in international, all right, I mean, if you are in a formal situation, it can be for a test, for a job interview, for an essay, we have to use where, always where. I don't know why they are not applying this. I imagine that they are not applying this because in that web page they are teaching more communicational English, right? And communicational English is just related to what people say and write on a daily basis. And usually people are going to say was, all right? And it's okay, but it is not formal. All right, it is not incorrect grammatically speaking, but it is not formal, and this is not going to be good for our test or for, again, formal situations. It's good that you show me. What they are doing, again, is they are teaching you basic grammar, but that basic grammar shouldn't apply for a very formal situation. All right, and one more time. Nowadays, this is acceptable, but it is better, way better, if in formal situations you always use where.
Okay.
All right. Let's take that into account. Yes, I thought it was on Pearson, and no, on Pearson also they mentioned that one. I don't know if you got to work this on Pearson yet, Natalia.
I think yet I have problems. Yesterday I was practicing the platform with the next topic with use conditional, I think, and I
yes,
have
exactly.
it's a complex topic, I think.
All right, yes, no, and it's good that you let me know. And actually, I want to take a look at that as you are.
I have 0.
But it is clear, right? Okay, we're going to see
Yes.
what happened. All right. Actually, I'm going to show you then to see they are using the same rules. Okay, the rules are always going to be the same, and mainly you need to know how to use that idea in past and how to use the idea in present. All right. Now we're going to check Pearson together. I'm going to see what they are showing you in the theory, and I'm going to take a look at the exercises now, all right, to see what they are expecting from you and to help you analyze that idea to do better. Okay, because perhaps you can still take it one more time, but I'm going to help you understand what they want from you in that part. All right, sometimes it is not that you don't know, it's just that the idea is not clear for what we have to do, and that makes it, all right, be bad and to obtain a bad grade. But again, it's not always because we don't know. Sometimes it's just because
Mhm,
it is not clear. All right.
mhm,
But as I'm going to that part, please, Natalia, let's read in the meantime the other examples in present, please.
mhm. The topic is the past and real conditional, I think.
Yes, correct. Exactly. That's something we have to cover today.
Uh-huh. Okay, the other examples in present with wish, I put the president wishes he didn't make this important decision. And the worker wishes she participated in the meeting. The kids wish they played together this morning. The speaker wishes he prepared his presentation with more time.
Okay. All right. Yes. I believe that you are not having any type of trouble in terms of using a wish. All right. In terms of the two groups of examples that you got in general, all right, what I'm going to pay attention to is how you use the combination and the conjugation of the ideas. We know that these are wishes in past because you're using the past perfect conjugation, right? I had studied, I hadn't forgotten, it hadn't been, or hadn't told, right? That's perfect. And here, simple past, but this is always related to present, right? Didn't make, participated, played, and prepared. All right. Now, again, I have no observations there. Now, what I'm going to do with you now, and you can still ask me questions if you got Natalia, is that I'm taking a look at what Pearson is showing you, but over here. And for
Mhm,
example, here, if you see, Pearson applies this rule, right? It says instead of it was, we say it were. All right. We're
mhm,
going to take a look at this very briefly. So, we use the simple past to talk about a wish in the present, right? This is what we know. So I wish I had a recording of the conversation or their conversation. So this is a present wish, right? It's not a past wish, a present wish. I wish Talia didn't work all the time, but she works all the time. That's reality. But this is a wish for present, right? Now, this is what I was telling you, right? When we use the verb to be, it is usually, right? We usually use where after wish, even for singular subjects, right? That's why we say, I wish I were that optimistic. All right. So that idea with where
mhm,
is going to be applied in all academic situations. All right. It's always formal. Then again, for past, we use the
mhm,
past perfect, and it's more of a regret, right? If you use a wish in the past with a past perfect, it is a regret. I just wish I had been more careful. But the reality is that you were not careful. And because you were not careful, there were bad things happening because of your decision, right? Or because of your not being careful. That's why this wish expresses a regret, right? It's not a real wish for the future because, as you were telling me, and you're right, a wish is usually for the future. But if you use wish for past, it is not a wish anymore, it's more of a regret. All right. Then would plus the base form, right? To wish that someone acted differently, right? I wish you would stop kicking yourself. All right. So if you want someone to act differently, you don't use will in future, you use would because this is a future wish, but we use would and we usually use this for another person. And the last one that we also did together, right? Could for ability. for present ability, something that you don't know, right, how to do, but you want to learn, right? I wish I could go back and do it over. This is like a literal ability, right? But you can say, I wish I could play the piano. I wish I could run faster. I wish I could do this and that. Things that you cannot do, but that you wish that you could do. All right, so Pearson
Mhm.
is working in the same way that I'm working, so we shouldn't have problems in terms of, at least I was checking this just because of this word. All right, verifying
Mhm.
that they are also using this logic, because again, in some places on internet, if you look, again, I shared that link, I thought they were following this rule, but they are not. But again, usually they follow this formal way of doing this where, but if you find pages that don't, they are not incorrect. They are correct, but they are working with a common and with a frequent way of using that. Okay, because again, in speaking and in informal writing, it is good if you use was. But again, for the TOEFL
Mhm.
test, for example, it is great if you say where. You have to say where. And you can use
Mhm.
this expression. It's common, for example, that you say, and if I were you, I would do it differently. Because in some tasks for speaking in the TOEFL, you have to mention things or hypotheses when you are kind of working with what someone else said. Okay, so you can use these ideas. But again, I wanted to show you that. And I want to know, because I understood that you did bad in the wish part, but did you do bad in the wish part or in the part about the past and real conditional in Natalia?
Yes, the problem is in the past and real conditional. When I practice there, I don't understand very well, and I put all the answer as mistakes.
Okay, so let's take a look. Look, first, the theory that I'm going to show you is very, very, let's say, brief. Let's take a
Mhm.
look at that theory, okay, 3 or 4 slides, and then we go to Pearson and we're going to see those exercises, all right, to
Okay.
understand together. So I'm going to leave it here. So the presentation is this one. Okay, now, and here, there you go. Now, to understand this clearly, you have to know again, why is it called unreal? Because it is impossible to change this situation. And why is it past? Because of course it has to be in past. Okay, so something that happened that you cannot change, but you imagine, right? This is an imaginary situation about a past thing that could have had a different result. Okay, so you are imagining the condition and the result in the past, but everything is imaginary. Everything is a hypothesis, right? About an interaction of condition and result in the past. But to make this correctly in Natalia, you always need a reference of reality. So my recommendation, all right, is to always practice this with a real situation. Okay? For example, a real situation for me is that I didn't read all the articles I had to read on time. And now the consequence, all right, is that I have to, let's say, I have to sacrifice, all right, sleeping hours because I have to work more. That I had to because I didn't organize very good my time. Okay, so
Mhm.
I didn't, right, read what I had to read. All right, so I to sleep less to, right, catch up. All right, to catch up in the sense of to try to get to the at the same pace where I'm supposed to be. All right, to try to do everything that I have to do. All right, and even yes, this has to be to make it in the past and real, because this is going to be, if it's in present, the mixed conditional. In order not to make it the mixed conditional, we're going to just take it everything in past. Now, this is reality, all right? My past reality of two elements in the past. I didn't read what I had to read in the past. So the consequence in the past is that I had to sleep less to catch up. Now, I can give an imaginary situation for this real situation. And here I need the past and real conditional. All right? The past and real conditional always needs these two elements, Natalia. The thing that really happened and the consequence of that thing. So for this one, we are always going to use two elements, right? The past perfect and the perfect models. Okay, if you remember that, you're never going to make mistakes. The past perfect is had, always had, plus the main verb in the past participle. And the perfect model, in most of the cases, that's my recommendation, is going to be would, plus the auxiliary have, plus the main verb in the past participle. Okay, so in my imagination, right? If I had read what I had to read, okay, if I had read what I had to read, comma, what's the imaginary effect of that imaginary situation? I wouldn't. All right, it's always the opposite to the reality. If the reality here is negative, the unreal conditional is affirmative. If the reality here is affirmative, the unreal situation is negative. So I would not have, right? What? Had to sleep less to catch up. All right, this is the idea over here. And this is what has to be very clear. These two structures over here. So in reality, I didn't read what I had to read, so I had to sleep less to catch up. In my imagination, because I regret, because I believe that was a mistake, I say, if I had read what I had to read, I wouldn't have had to sleep less to catch up. All right, so again, that has to be clear. It is always going to be the opposite. All right, it's always going to be the opposite. It doesn't matter what. We can try to think of something. Try to give me, please, you one example, Natalia. What is something that you did or you didn't do in the past? And what's the consequence of that action? Usually something that you regret. Usually something that you believe it was a mistake. That's why you imagine, right, imaginary situations to say what could have happened if it had been different. All right, so what do you say? What did you do or what did you not do in the past? And what was the consequence also in the past of that action?
I didn't buy the flight tickets on time. So
Okay.
I have to pay more for buying now.
And remember to buy, right? Because this is your objective, right? Or your purpose. So you need infinitive. Okay, to buy them now, right? And always the object, right? We're talking about the tickets, so in plural. But it's great. It's a great example. Something in the past that you didn't do, and this is the negative consequence, right? So following the logic that I showed you, Natalia, what is then the unreal conditional of that past situation?
If I
Good. Remember always the opposite. If the reality is negative, the conditional is affirmative. If it's affirmative, it is negative.
If I buy the flight tickets on time?
But always remember, we are in the past perfect. The past perfect always needs had, always had, and then the main verb in the past participle. So the
If
auxiliary, right?
I
Remember?
had
Exactly. And the main
buy,
verb, what is? But buy is the base form. What is the past participle of buy?
bought,
Bought.
bought.
Exactly. Bought. Good. You have it over there. If you have that clear, everything is going to be good. The rest is repeating, right? So if I had bought the flight, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
No, now
I
you tell me, please, the consequence.
I would uh, I wouldn't have had to pay more to buy them now.
Exactly. There you go. All right. Or to buy them, as we are talking about past, perhaps that's a mistake that I made over there. To buy them afterwards, we're going to say. All right. It means after that situation. Afterwards. It is better because if we say now, we are talking about present, but we're not going to mix the present with that. Okay. It was my mistake. Afterwards. Okay. To say after that situation, but not in the present, right? It was in the future of that past situation. But there you go. Okay. So again, what you have to pay attention to, Natalia, is always past perfect and always the past model or the perfect model. All right, that's going to be the idea over there. I have double period. I don't know why. Okay, good. Now, I don't know if you have any questions about that. Again, we're going to take a look at the theory, but this is the logic that we need to understand. All right, and actually before the questions, because I'm going to show you that combination, I'm going to show you this element over here that shows you what you need. Okay, so to form an idea in the past perfect or the past unreal conditional, you always need the if clause plus a complete idea in the past perfect. And what do you need in past perfect? Always had or had not, right? Had or hadn't. It depends on the reality. If the reality is affirmative, hadn't. If the reality is negative, had. All right. Then after had, always the verb in the past participle, being, given, taken, all right, chosen, bought, thought, thought, all right, always the past participle plus complement. Then you have the comma, and in the second part, but again, my recommendation, and even perhaps this is going to be confusing because not every time this is going to be correct. I'm going to work with Pearson as well. The most common one, you can use more, but only in specific situations. But my recommendation is to use would. Would is always the best option in conditionals. All right, it's never going to be incorrect. If you use would, it is going to be good. All right, that's my recommendation. So let's use would over there. Plus not if it's negative, plus have, always this have, and then the verb in the past participle. Okay, it was a coincidence because in my example I use have and the past participle is had, and in your example also have that was had, right? But if the verb is the verb to be, is going to be I would have been, because been is the past participle of be. If it was think, right? What's the past participle of think? Thought. Exactly, right? So I wouldn't have thought. I wouldn't have given. I wouldn't have started. I wouldn't have chosen, and so on and so forth. Okay? It doesn't matter what the main verb is, Natalia, it has to be in the past participle, then the complement. And remember, as in every, because this is, what type of sentence is this? Is this a simple sentence? Is this a compound sentence? Or is this a complex sentence? If you remember that, this is a complex complex sentence. All right. And how do you know? Because in complex sentences, Natalia, you always can invert the situation and it's still correct. Right? So you can start with the perfect model, then you can go with the conditional clause. All right, and it's still correct, right? It always happens with conditional. It always happens, but this is what we call a complex sentence. Okay, it doesn't matter that the name is not important, but I'm mentioning that because you have this opportunity. So you can say would plus not or and have and the verb in the past participle complement optional plus if and the past perfect, right? It means had not plus verb in the past participle and so on and so forth. And here you have some examples. All right, this is the first standard order. Here I'm using more than just would, but again, my recommendation for Pearson, Natalia, and for a general use, it's better if you use would all the time. All right, that's never going to be incorrect. It's always going to be correct. But let's read please to understand the logic and to get used to the past perfect and get used to the perfect models, please, Natalia. Let's read the examples over here, please.
Mhm. If I study harder, I could have faced the test. Reality, I didn't study harder, so I couldn't pass the test. If I had not gone out during the lockdown, I would not have gotten infected. Reality, I went out during the lockdown, so I got infected. If she had accepted the offer, she might have saved up what was needed. Reality, she didn't accept the offer, so she didn't save up what was needed.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Natalia. Now, again, if you pay attention to the logic, it is always the same, Natalia. Always the same. Always the opposite to the reality, because this is an unreal situation. So, if in the past you didn't study harder, the consequence was that you couldn't pass the test. Okay? Or if you want to use only would, you can say, so I didn't pass the test. Okay? And it's still correct. So I didn't study harder, so I didn't pass the test. So the unreal situation, the unreal conditional for that would be, if I had studied harder, I would have passed the test. Again, and it's the same. Okay, it's the same. The only thing that I'm changing is that here I'm using ability. So if you use ability as part of your reality, you can also use ability or possibility as part um, of your unreal condition. All right, but again, only do this if Pearson is giving you that idea. But if I'm not wrong, Natalia, in most of the cases, if not all of the cases, Pearson is going to expect you to use would. All right, but again, I'm showing you this because you have more possibilities in a real life situation. All right, in your test, you can use this. It's not incorrect. In a real life conversation, of course, you can use it. All right, but I'm talking about that the most common way to use real conditionals is always going to be with would. Okay, I'm repeating that a lot because you're going to see that on Pearson. But that's the logic. I don't know if you have any questions just by looking at these examples so that you can then work on your examples and then we go to Pearson to understand what they wanted.
Only if when you use the third person, you use have or has, no has, always is have in the second part of the sentence.
In this case, yes, I'm here, yes, always have. Because the rule says that after a model, it is always the base form. And this is the auxiliary, but being the auxiliary after the base form, it doesn't matter if it's I or she, it's always going to be have. It doesn't change. So it's always going to be would have or wouldn't have. I would have, she would have, he would have, they would have. Okay, it's not going to change. And also the verb in the past participle, of course, always in the past participle. Okay, so just changing that here, it would be, if she had not gone out during the lockdown, she would not have gotten infected. So it's exactly the same. Here, And here, it doesn't matter if it's I, it doesn't matter if it's she, it's the same for all the subjects. In the first part and in the second part is exactly the same for all the subjects. And that's an advantage because you don't have to think of that, right? You don't have to think, I need an S, I need to change this. No, here it's the same for the conditional, for the first conditional clause, and for the result clause. All right, it doesn't change. All right, so let's work on some examples then, Natalia. If there are no questions, because as you can see, it's not hard, but it's important to understand it in that way. Let's go to the document and we're going to write, please, just 2 examples. All right, but in the 2 examples, Natalia, I need you to do what I did here. And the 2 examples, please, are going to be with would, to practice with would, because that's what we need to learn very well. Okay, it's like number 2. So you need to give me a reality, please, Natalia. The reality is in the simple past, right? So I went out during the lockdown, affirmative. The consequence, so I got infected, affirmative. So my unreal conditional, if both are affirmative, my unreal conditional is going to be both in negative, right? If I had not gone out during the lockdown, negative, I would not have gotten infected, negative. All right, because again, it's always opposite to the reality. So again, you need to give me only 2 examples, but with these 2 components, please, Natalia. The reality and then the unreal conditional to show what you imagine the past could have been if it had been different. All right, that's the logic over there. Okay.
Okay.
So if you don't have any questions, let's work on that. Please, we're going to have 3 to 4 minutes. If you finish before,
Yes.
please let me know. All right, there you go.
Okay, I finished.
There you go. I'm going there with you so that we can check everything. And with that again, actually, that's the topic in general. It is not going to be more complex than that. If we understand that, we know that we can invert everything we do, but it's exactly the same, right? But again, let's be sure that it is clear by taking a look at your examples. So I'm here. Let's read what you got, please, Natalie.
If I hadn't spent more money on my vacation, I would have bought a new car. Reality, I spent a lot during my vacation, so I didn't buy a new car. A lot of money. And the other one is, if you hadn't gone home this weekend, you would have spent more time with your family. Reality, you went out this weekend, so you didn't spend time with your family.
All right, yes, it is working perfectly. Exactly. And the only thing that you have to know besides that is that you can invert this idea, right? Because it's just let's say something extra, but the meaning is exactly the same, right? Because you can say, I would have bought a new car if I hadn't spent, right, a lot of money on my vacation or during my vacation, right? The only difference is that we don't use a comma, right? If the word if is in the middle, we don't use a comma. That's the only thing that you have to know. And if you know that again, everything is over there. And that's everything. That's absolutely everything about the past and real conditional. All right. Again, it's just memorizing those two tenses, and that is going to be it. I'm just going to show you now that inversion that I'm telling you here. But again, if you can recognize the only difference, we're not going to read everything, please, here, Natalia. We're only going to read only number 2, but realize that it's exactly the same as the previous example, only inverted. Okay, so let's read only number 2, please.
I would not have gotten infected if I had not gone out during the lockdown. Reality, I got infected because I went out during the lockdown.
All right, now in this reality, if you want to work in the correct order, this is the reason why this happened, right? And this is going to be the hypothesis for that past situation if you had acted differently, if you had done different things, if you had reacted in a different way. All right, if that had happened, things would have, all right, occurred differently. Things would have changed, right? Everything would have been in a different way. Okay, so you can play with the words, you can play with those ideas, but again, the logic is just that you can invert. And that's it. Now, I would like to go to Pearson to see some details related to this, and if they are expecting the same as I'm telling you. But I don't know if you have any questions as I'm going there, Natalia. Let me know, please.
No, it's more clear now.
Okay,
I
that's
don't
great.
know why I can't understand person, but now it's more clear.
Good, that's good. Yes, sometimes, that's the limitation, right? Sometimes of just working with a platform, it works like that in any situation, right? So it's good. It's really good because that's the logic, right? Also of the program, right? You can take a look at elements in advance, but the idea is that you can always communicate things that are not clear for you yet so that we can take a look at that together. All right? So, for example, we're going to take a look at one even with the options that we got. So here, if Natalia had gone to Josh's right party, Amy would have introduced her to Matt. So they are giving us the past and real conditional, right? This means that the reality is always the opposite, right? And what's the reality? Amy didn't introduce Talia to Matt. Right? That's the reality because it says Amy would have introduced her to Matt, But if we say Amy would have introduced her to Matt, it means that it didn't happen, that she didn't introduce her to Matt. That's the reality. All right, so that's what they were expecting over here. Also, number two. Let's read also, please, with you, Natalia, number two.
If Julio hadn't been on his college soccer team, he wouldn't have gotten on the national team. This means that Julio got on the national team.
Exactly, right? Why? Because if the unreal conditional says he wouldn't have gotten on the national team, negative, the reality is affirmative. He got, right, on the national team. So that's the logic. The logic is always going to be opposite to reality, Natalia, because we only use the past unreal conditional to work with imaginary situations, to work with hypotheses, to work with regrets, to work with things that are not real. But you want to suppose, you want to pretend to know what could have happened if that situation had been different. Okay, and the rest of them, they are just exactly the same. All right, that's part of number one. And if we go to the second exercise, and again, of course, then you can try to work on that once again. Here we have to work on a situation, and here we have to use what? The past and real conditional. Right? For example, what would it be here in Natalia? Just by taking a look at that.
Mm-hmm. If I had been more careful,
Correct. And the result?
I would gotten or got the evidence.
Close. Close. But if you say I would got, that's incorrect. Remember the structure, always would plus the auxiliary have plus the verb in the past participle.
I would have got the evidence.
And it's, but remember that got can be past participle, but only in some situations. But what's the real past participle of get? Gotten. It's the one that you said before, gotten, exactly. Okay, got can be the past participle, but not in a formal situation. When you really need the past participle of got, it is better if you say gotten. But that's perfect. Exactly. What about in the next part? Here. Or let's go to Nick, over here. All right, it says, poor Talia, she's so angry at herself. If I this, her message, I and up to this part. So how do you complete this part?
If I had gotten her message, I would have heard about a mistake with the recording.
Perfect. Just the pronunciation. The past participle of here is heard. Right? Heard, exactly. Perfect. If I had gotten her message, I would have heard about the mistake with the recording. Okay, so that's the logic. Now, again, as you can see, that's the logic that we are always going to follow, Natalia, and that's what the only thing that they are expecting from you when you take a look at the past and real conditional. So I don't know if you have any last questions before going to one introduction for the next topic. Let me know, please.
No, thank you.
All right,
I don't know if it's possible to start from zero this exercise.
Okay, yes. Did you take the 2 attempts that you had?
Yes.
Okay, now I cannot, I cannot reassign because the due date is until a specific due date. But what I'm going to do, after we get to the end of that due date, I'm going to reassign this. Okay, so at the end of the course, please, at the end of the course, you're going to have extra time to work on this element. All right, but now if I try to reassign, I'm going to show you what they are going to show me. Look, these are the ones. Okay. Now I cannot select your username. Okay, because the due date is still over there. So when it finishes, I'm going to reassign it so that you can take it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, there you go. But please, you're going to remind me, okay? In the last day, when we are getting to the last day to complete everything, remind me that after we get to that date, I'm reassign this. So far, only this.
Mhm,
But if we need
mhm,
also extra time, I'm going to reassign more things. But so far, this is the only thing I should reassign.
mhm. Okay.
All right, there you go. Now, let's go then to a short introduction, please, to one topic that is part of the lesson that we have to be in. And actually, this is easier and it's related. This is the present and real conditional. And if you understood a wish, Natalia, because I saw that yes, you understood wish, they are the same. What happens in the past and real conditional in a past situation? We use the past perfect, right? In wish, we also use the past perfect. Okay, so what happens in a present situation? In a present situation with wish, what tense do we use? We use the simple past, right? We use the
Mhm,
simple past. I wish I had more time. And the present and real conditional, we also use the simple past. Okay, so they are related. If you understand wish, you are going to understand the past and real conditional as you were able to see, and you're going to understand the present and real conditional. And of course, this is easier. Okay, this tense is easier, but in the contents, it is after the past and real conditional. All right, I don't know why, but it is afterwards. Just let me change, please, this format,
mhm.
and now let's go. So, if I ask you this question, Natalia, how would you answer? What would you do if you were rich? And here, if you analyze, you're also going to use where with all the subjects. So, what do you say? What would you do if you were rich?
If I were rich, I would uh, had bought a big house.
Okay, close. It's good, but you're using I would have bought. That's perfect, but that's for the past and real conditional. For the
Mm,
present and real conditional is easier. You only need a normal model, and that's a model plus the main verb in the base form. So you're going to say,
okay.
if I were rich, remember this is present and real. So if I were rich now, I would buy what? What would you buy if you were rich, Natalia?
A big house.
Perfect. Okay, so as this is present and real conditional, both elements have to be related to the present. If I were rich now, but the reality, I'm not rich, I would buy a new big house. But the reality is that right, I'm not going to buy a new
Mhm,
big house because I'm not rich. All right, so it's the
mhm,
same, but if you analyze again, it's easier. You use simple past, if I were rich, and a normal model, would plus the base form of the verb. Okay, here you don't need auxiliaries, here you don't need the past participle. This is another question. Where would you travel if you had a plane?
mhm. If I had a plane, I would travel to Japan.
Perfect. There you go. It's easy as that. Very good. If I had a plane, I would travel to Japan. Okay, so what's the difference, the obvious difference between the past and real conditional and the present and real conditional is that in the present and real conditional, you're talking about situations that are not true in the present. And in the past and real conditional, you're talking about situations that were not true in the past, right? So if in the present, the reality is that I don't have time in the present, and the reality is that I don't spend time with my family. Okay, so I don't have time, so I don't spend time with my family. So my present and real conditional can be if I had time, I would spend time with my family, right? That's in present. But I can change also that to past. I can say, I didn't have time in the past, so I didn't spend time with my family. And there, I don't need this, right? I need the past and real conditional. And I'm going to say, if I had time, I would have spent more time with my family, right? So it depends. It depends on the situation you're talking about, Natalia. If the situation happened in the past, use the past and real conditional. If the situation is real in the present, use the present and real conditional to talk about hypothesis. And one more time, an imaginary situation for the present. And here the same recommendation, Natalie. Even though I'm giving you the possibilities, remember, as you were able to see with Pearson, most of the times they are always going to ask to use would. All right, but you can use other models, but it's better if you get used to this first. So if simple past, right, complement, comma, subject, modal would, base form of a verb, and complement. And inversion. We can invert every time we get something like that. Now, let me fix this. Let's read please this example. And again, you're going to take a look that this is exactly the same as the past and real conditional, right? The only difference would be what? Just the tense that we are using and the logic that we are following. So let's read these three examples, please, Natalia.
Mhm. If I had a car, I would drive to different cities every vacation. I don't have a car, so I don't drive. If I didn't study that much, I would fail every test. I study that much, so I don't fail. If she felt sick, she would tell us. I know her. She doesn't feel sick, so she doesn't tell us anything.
All right, so again, the reality in this case is always in present. I don't have a car, so I don't drive. But in my imagination, if I had a car, I would drive to different cities every vacation. Right? So again, that's the main difference, Natalia, that the reality in this case has to be a present reality. And your present and real conditional is going to be a present imaginary situation that is the opposite to your reality. Always the opposite to your reality. Right? And once again, here you can work with inversion. In this case, once again, please, Natalia, only read number one, please.
Mhm. I would drive to different cities every vacation if I had a car. I don't drive because I don't have a car.
Right? Same logic. All right? It's the same logic. You can work with inversion, but the logic is exactly the same. If the word if is in the middle, once again, we don't use comma. That's the only and that's the main difference. So when do we use the present and real conditional, Natalia? Let's read these four elements, please.
Mhm. When you want to talk about things that are not real and that can be different now, to give advice to someone, to make hypotheses, to imagine a different result under different circumstances.
All right, and that's it. All right. One more question. What would you do if you found a wallet on the street? What do you say? This is always a type of question, right, that you can get in any situation.
If found if I found a wallet on the street, I I I bring to the police. I bring it to the police.
Exactly. And if you're using I'd with the contraction of I would, it's good. But remember, you always have to use would, right? It can be contracted. I'd bring it to the police,
Yes.
or I would bring it to
I
the
would.
police.
Yes.
Exactly. Great. Very good. Exactly.
Mm.
That's the logic. Okay. Remember that these questions are about the present and your response is about the present. How would you feel if you failed on your test?
If I failed on my test, I will feel very sad.
Correct, exactly. There you go. This is common, right? Not in the TOEFL, but in the future you're going to take other international tests, perhaps. Natalia, it's very common that they ask you these type of questions. These
Mhm.
questions are a good way to know the level of a person, okay, the English level of a person, because this
Okay.
is a complex way to use tenses, because you're using past, but this is not past, right? This is present. All right. And if you understand this, it means that your level is going to be above intermediate. Okay, it's intermediate advanced. These type of structures are always, again, a good highlight, a good landmark to identify a person that knows English at an intermediate to an intermediate advanced level. All right, I'm mentioning that because it's common and it's good that you know this, and it's great that you can integrate this to your speech because it gives again complexity to your to the ideas that you can express. And remember the rule with be, Natalia. Anytime you see the verb to be, it has to be where. If I were, if she were,